Okay, so today's project is kind of a cool one. It is a Telecaster guitar, but it's made out of Western red cedar. Makes your shop smell amazing. Let's get into it. Hey, if you like what you see here or you found it interesting or useful, why don't you give that subscribe button a click. Maybe give us a like, maybe hit the little bell thingy, lets you know when we put up new videos. What? Huh? Oh, my lawyer would like a word with you.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
Okay, probably the first thing I need to do is select some wood. How about this guy right here? Looks pretty good. This is 8/4 Western red cedar. That'll work for our needs here. Okay, next I throw her up on the DeWalt radial arm saw and I measure off a couple of 16-inch pieces. I know from experience that two 16-inch pieces, about 13.5-inch wide total, will be a nice size blank for a telly. I normally go just a little bit longer than 16 on these. All right, here we go. Man, I love the way this stuff smells. Smells like victory.
Smells like victory.
All right, the next thing we're doing is we are jointing the edges so we can get a nice, almost invisible seam where we got to glue them together because I don't have wood wide enough for a one piece. I normally use this little itty bitty tiny guy. He's got a segmented carbide head in him, so he gets a nice clean cut. And these blanks are only 16 inches long, so I don't need to fire up the big Craftsman that I use for other stuff. So here we go. Usually a couple of passes is all I need. I don't have the vacuum hooked up just for this little bit, just because it gets really noisy and it's hard to hear me over both this and the vacuum going. So now that we have them cut and jointed, let's go glue them together. Okay, so here we are at the workbench and I have my pipe clamps set up. I like the pipe clamps with the big feet on them. It keeps them off the table so that you can spin the handles. You don't have to monkey around with that. And also these are the 3/4 inch ones. I probably put a little more pressure on my clamps than people would tell me is normal, but through long experience I have found what works for me. So we'll put these guys up here and I always try to match the grain the best I can. The grain's kind of going this way, and that's a pretty good match there. That one's okay there. That one's not good there. So we'll go with this right here. That'll be the up face. So I have a little glue dispenser here with a roller on it, and I use Titebond, just the original Titebond, not 2, not 3, just the original Titebond. Why, you may ask? It is the least, I guess what I'm going to call flexible of the three. This dries hard. Titebond 2, it has a little flex to it. Titebond 3 is really bad. And I know that Titebond 3 is waterproof and Titebond 2 is water resistant and all that. But if your guitar is soaking in water long enough to loosen up a Titebond 1 glue joint, you got bigger problems than your guitar coming apart. So let's go and hook this guy up here. This dispenser is really nice. It gets you a nice glue dispersion. I also use my finger upon occasion, but and you know what? it's more important than you would think to make sure that you get a very well spaced, even glue joint. A lot of people just say, well, when I squish it together, it'll squeeze out and that'll be a good joint. Again, from my experience, you spend the extra 8 seconds and do it right. All right, so we put her in here, get her about lined up, tighten this guy down. And I also have a special way of doing this. So I'll tighten this down just a little bit, not huge, just snug it up a little bit. And then I always put another clamp going the other way. These two are on the bottom, this one's on the top. When I say going the other way, that's what I mean, on the top. If you don't, sometimes it can give you one of these when you clamp it together. But if you get them on both the top and the bottom, I know a lot of you are going to say that that's overkill, but that's the way it is. You see I get a little bit of squeeze out, not a huge amount. You don't have to use a whole lot of glue. You saw how much was on there. And I tighten these down a little bit. Now we wait for overnight. This glue will probably dry good enough to work with it. It may be 6 hours, but I always wait overnight, probably 12 hours, just to be safe. Okay, so it's the next day now, and I'm taking these guys out of the clamps. Checking this out, you can see I got a nice tight seam front and back. Just a little bit of glue squish out. So we'll take this over. Okay, here we are at the planer. I use a 20-inch, 5 horsepower insertable carbide head cutter instead of the blades, so it makes short work of most of the stuff. I also have this hooked up, obviously, to my dust collector, my chip extractor. It's going to get loud when I turn both of these on, so I'll explain it to you now. Normally it's only 4 or 5 passes. I use a stop block that I made that I set right in here, because I'm not using all 20 inches of this planer, to get my thickness. And I'll get one side flat, and then I'll turn it over and run the other side through as many times as I need to hit my thickness, which is 1.75. So let's turn this stuff on now. Boy, the shop smells terrific at this cedar. Let's see what we got here. I always double check them. .75, right on the money. Okay, here's the computer I use. I use a laptop ThinkPad, IBM or Lenovo ThinkPad. because it has a touch screen, and I really like the touch screen. This one's a not very powerful one, it's an old one. I think I bought this for $100 on eBay. So I use a jump drive right here to move my file over, my G-code file. I like to program in the comfort of my office in my home. I'm out here in the shop, it's colder in the winter, everything else, so I just use a jump drive. You know, your situation may differ. So I've loaded up the Tele program, and you can see it there. Now what I have to do is set zeros. I also do this a little bit differently than most people, I think, but I'll show you what I do. Since I make so many guitar bodies over the course of my business day, this is the way I do it. I have homed, you can see they're all zero. I have homed my machine. And now I'll move you over to the machine. Okay, so my machine, which is a 1Finity Journeyman with a spindle, is at its home position. It's all the way over, it's all the way up, and it's all the way forward. And that's my home position. They have done studies, and there's a number of YouTube videos by other guys where that home position is to within a couple 5,000ths every time. Okay, it might not be in the exact same position every time, but within, like I said, a couple 5,000ths, close enough for woodworking stuff. So I use that as my zero. All right, so now those are all at zero. I also have a little bit different way of clamping stuff down, and I'll show you that now. So all of the programs that I use to make guitar bodies, the zero on the guitar body is the middle of the blank this way, and at the rear right here. Okay, so that's always where I start from when I program those bodies. And you may remember back earlier in this video when I was programming this body, that's how I did it. So there's no body that I have ever made that's over 24 inches long, so I'm fine here, and there's no body that I have made that is over, I think it's 24 inches wide this way, so that's my window. I can change that, it's no problem, it's just that I couldn't set it up this particular way. So I also use a little 1/4 inch sacrificial piece of HDF that I use on the bottom. I'll show you this. You can see that gets cut up over time. I generally go about 20,000ths deeper, as I showed you on the programming, and it cuts into this, you know, once a week I throw this away and put a new $1 piece down. So here I'll place this blank on here, and I've already chosen the side that I want up. All right, and I use, this is the way I do it, I use one of my templates. And I put that template, and you can see the template has a center line in it here and a center line in it here. And you can see that there's a center line here and there's a center line there. So I'll move this back to about zero a little bit. I want to move it a little bit more farther back than zero, because I do want to make sure that I cut that entire contour and I don't leave any flat spot there. So I'll do that, okay, and then I'll place this template on there and make sure that that center line is lined up. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm looking down and I'm lining up the center line with the center line I have scribed on my spoil board. Okay, and that looks pretty good right there. Maybe just a touch more there. And then I can see everything, how it's going to cut it. I can see that it's going to be wide enough, I can see that it's going to be long enough, and I can see that it's going to clear my clamps. I also use a different clamping section type that we'll go into later, maybe in another video, but this works well for me. Some guys, there's 100 ways you can clamp this, you know, double-sided tape, or a vacuum table, or pin nails, or whatever. This is the way I do it. Right? Excuse me for being in your picture here, but I gotta tighten up these clamps. So I made some steel clamps here that I've been using for, I don't know, 10 years now. That work good. You can see sometimes there's a little programming error that'll cost me a bit. That's one time over, like I said, 10 years, but it happens. Okay, and all I'm doing is tightening these guys down. Tighten both of these clamps down, and that'll hold it really tight. Okay? So now I know how it's going to be on there. I know that we're probably not going to have a problem. I know that X and Y0 is over here, 0 machine. All I have to do is set Z0. So I'm going to do that now. There's a lot of guys that do this a lot of different ways. There's 0 setting tools. There's the block automatically that goes in there, the touch block. I do it the old-fashioned way, okay? Piece of paper is maybe 1/4 thou thick. That's what I use. So I will set my 0 now. I get her close going the fast way. I stick this piece of paper under here. I get her as close as I can. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm just moving this paper back and forth. I have this on the slowest setting. I'm moving this paper back and forth while it's going down. There you go, where it stops. And I want to get it right there, just as it's touching the paper. And then I'll hit on my computer screen. It's off camera right now, but I hit the 0 for the Z. Okay, make sure that changes over to 0. I'm then ready to cut. I'll put this back to the origin. I always do that just because it's force of habit and it's good practice. I will start my router. I just hit the start button on the VFD. A lot of guys program that into the program to start and stop their router. That's also fine. Again, this is just the way I do it. Now for this one, I'll put it on a time-lapse kind of deal here, but I'm leaving off my brush so that you can see it cutting. All right. It's the cycle time on this is about 6 minutes. I will still turn on my air, my vacuum, but it won't suck up a lot, and I'll kind of babysit this thing and blow it off with compressed air as we go through it, just so you can see the process. So let me start the vacuum. My dust collector back here. All right, and we're ready to go. I hit the start button. It tells me, "Are you ready?" I say, "Yes, I am," and here we go. Okay, so you can see everything worked right. I didn't hit any flat spots here. Came pretty close back here, I'm not gonna lie. I normally like to leave a little more than that, but so body's good. Unclamp it. And that's what the body looks like. You can see let me get her blown out. It cut all the way through, left the tabs, but it did not go that deep into my spoil board. So now, Now what I'll do is I'll remove these tabs. I use a Japanese pull saw to do this just because it's fast and it's easy. This is what I do. This one's almost fallen off. You don't want to rip these off. If you do, sometimes the grain will catch and it'll rip a hole or a big chunk. It'll take a big chunk out of the edge. So cut these off like I just did. All right, and there's the telly body. You can see the leaves a pretty good finish. It being a roughing cutter leaves a pretty good finish. We have to go take these tabs off, and we have to sand the sides. So we'll bring her over to the sander for that. We're hot off the machine, off the CNC, bring her over to the bench. I use a long drill bit for this next part. Some of them you'll see made with that slot right here. I don't like that because if you don't want to use a pick guard, maybe to show the real nice grain of this, you know, that thing's going to be hanging out. So we don't make ours, or I don't make mine, we don't make ours with that cut here. We just drill a hole through the neck plate here, back to this one to get a hole, so you get the wire through here, and we go this way through there, and then we'll drill a big hole, 7/8 hole back here for the input jack. So this is just pretty easy with the long drill bit, right? There's the first hole. On this one, be a little careful. You can't get it too low of an angle or you'll put a divot right there. So just keep your angle correct. There we go. Those are those two holes. Once those two holes are drilled, we're going to sand the edges. They're pretty good, but we have to sand off the tabs that we cut off before, and sometimes you'll get this, depending on the grain of your wood, you'll get a little discoloration. So we'll sand all that off. What I have here is a 3-inch pneumatic. This is filled up with air, so it has a little give to it, and that's an 80 grit sanding sleeve on there. So sands it right off. Also, sometimes, depending on the species of wood, you'll see the past depths. There'll be little, tiny little lines almost here. It doesn't happen on cedar because it's so soft, but it does happen on, let's say, ash. And so those get sanded off. Now, this is nice because it takes it all off very quickly, but you can't get into, let's say, right in here. You can see that's discolored in there. So I have another sander for that. This is my oscillating spindle sander, and I believe this is a 1.5 inch spindle on there, so, or diameter of that drum. So we'll use that to get in here. Doesn't take it off quite as fast as the other one, but does a good job. The next step would be putting a round over on this edge. You know, you might be asking, well, why don't you just do a round over on that edge on the CNC? And we certainly could have, but that would have taken a tool change, and I don't have an automatic tool changer, so it's simply just faster to do it this way, especially if you have the setup like I have. This is one of those non-skid router mats. They work pretty good. They last a couple of months before I get a new one, but they're, you know, $2 a piece if you buy them in a 6-pack. And the way we do this here to save time is we use a Ryobi 2 horsepower router. I'll set it down here. And we leave this bit in there. This is an 1/8 inch roundover for a Tele. Some other ones, Jazz Masters, other ones will have a 3/16 inch roundover. And so we have just another router that has the 3/16 roundover in it. So we just pull these off the wall and go to town. We leave them locked down really tight for depth so that there's no problem. Again, we make enough of these so that we can do that, but I bought these routers as refurbished new on eBay, and I think I paid $62 a piece for them or something. And you know, we probably make, I don't know, 30 or 40 guitar bodies a month, so they pay for themselves in no time. There are some guys that'll tell you as far as the grain goes, well, you got to go this way on this part of the body, and then this way on that part of the body, and then this way on this part of the body. And all that may or may not be true. I don't know. We just go around in a conventional cut, not a climbing cut. So we will go around this body in a counterclockwise motion. So we're always feeding wood into the bit here. Okay, so I'll show you how we do that. That was real time, that's all there is to it. Be careful on your lead-ins and your lead-outs over here. You don't want to cut into the sharp edge, otherwise if it's too much of a radius, it'll leave a lip when you put your neck plate on there. This one doesn't really require it as I look at it, but a lot of times there might be like a little fill, especially with all these knots and stuff, or sometimes there's a little fill where you'll fill it with some CA glue or wood filler or whatever, but now's a good time to take her down. This is a 120 grit sanding pad on a random orbit sander. That's all that it takes, and boy, that's smooth. The reason that's all that takes is because we have the planer that we use has an indexable carbide cutters in there, not the knives, spiral head, and it leaves an exceptionally smooth surface anyhow. So we're just taking out any marks that may be left on that, and we sell these bodies as unfinished anyhow. So depending on what finish the final customer is gonna put on it, will determine if he wants to take that any farther. We don't have a drum sander, don't need one. Some guys use them, they work fantastic. Okay, here's that part in the video that some, most, or I don't know, maybe even all of you have been waiting for. It's the part where we give you the free coupon code for the files. If I've done my job right, that coupon code should pop up right about here. Just use the link in the description to go to the webpage, and it's going to try to charge your hard-earned money for those files. You don't have to play that. Just type in the coupon code. It'll let you download them for free. You're welcome. Here's the rest of the video. For the final step in this process, we have a jig that we have clamped to our drill press. The drill press has a 7/8 inch diameter carbide toothed Forstner bit in it, and this jig holds this body up, and it also gives us the back and forth the dimension here with this stop down here. So let's do this. Usually leaves a little scrap in here that we pull out. So there you have it. That's the final. This guy's ready to go through quality control where we do any number of checks on it. And then he gets put into inventory. I did want to show you this real quick. One of the quality control checks that we do on each and every body that we make is we check the width of this neck pocket. It'll vary a little bit with temperature and humidity and how sharp the bit was, species of wood, feed and speed rate and all that stuff. But it is supposed to be 2 3/16. 2 3/16 is 2.187 inches wide. So we checked each one of them for that, and we have determined that a tolerance of plus minus 7 thou is good. A piece of paper is about 20-pound bond paper is about 4 thou thick, so no more than 2 sheets of paper, and it'll literally move more than that, you know, given the temperature outside. So let's get this guy here and let's see how wide he is. It's important when you're measuring this not to measure angularly like that or up here, because this neck pocket does taper like this. That's in the print. So you want to get it at the widest point all the way in the back. Okay, right before that radius takes place. Let's look and see. Well, we don't want to get at an angle here. Let's look and see what we got here. So this one is 2.1885. So it's 1.5 thou big. That's well within our tolerance, and that's a good neck pocket right there. Your aftermarket necks or even your factory necks will vary way more than that. We have done a little more hand sanding on this wherever it would need it. We've checked it over really well as far as dimension goes. You can see we've marked that neck pocket width dimension right there. So now what we'll do is we will mark it with our logo. We will assign it a serial number. Each one of our bodies gets a unique serial number. This one is 1428, and we will weigh it. We weigh each one with a postal scale here. And this one weighs 4 pounds, 15 ounces. So we're going to put that in here too. Now this guy can go into inventory to some lucky customer. Well, I hope that you had as much fun making this thing as I did as showing you how to do so. A little after project tip. Take the little parts that you cut off right here and right here, put them in your closet. They'll smell amazing for a couple of months.